Good afternoon. I'm pleased to be here to introduce Peter Davidson. He is, today I really like him, but 2 weeks from now when we're playing Stanford, he's going to be the enemy. So, and I think Stanford will be favored by probably 10 points, at least after what they did to Oregon. So, but welcome, Peter. What I like about Peter, just talking to him shortly, he is not a man of government. He's a man of action and a man that is involved, is ready to talk, ready to commit on a number of things that are important to our industry in freeing up and making easier working with the government and working with financing from the government. And so we appreciate his coming, and I think you'll hear more from him in our magazines. He's got some things he's going to be unfolding, and we will try to get the first glimpse of that out with him when it's releasable. So Peter, come right up, and I'm happy to have you here, and you're a friend until 2 weeks from now, in which case I'll be crying probably.
Thank you, Bob. We have a common enemy in Alabama, so let's bond on that. Okay, so it's great to be here, and I'm very happy to be speaking to you. So what I want to do today is talk a little bit about the Department of Energy's Loan Program Office. I'm the new executive director there. I've been there for 6 months. So I want to talk a little bit about what we do, our track record and our performance, because we're just coming out with that for pretty much the first time. And then I want to spend a bunch of time talking about a new solicitation, which is the way we communicate government intention of what we're doing. But we're coming out with a new $8 billion solicitation for advanced fossil fuels. So that has a wide range of applications for the oil, gas, coal, and related industries. So we'll get to that. So first of all, what do we do at the Loan Program Office? Our entire mission is to accelerate the commercial deployment of clean technologies and clean energy in the United States. So it's all about commercial deployment. It's all about the valley of death and how you overcome that. Not the early valley of death, which is getting enough money into R&D and for pilot projects, but the second valley of death is once you've got your demo project, once it's an up and running project, and you need to scale it to very large scale, utility scale, or a large factory, how do you get the senior debt financing to make that happen? So we're all about commercial deployment, and the way we go at it is by providing senior debt. So we are a debt operation. We do not do grants, we do not make equity investments, but we make loans to projects. And I'll get more into it, but just to give you a bit of the scale, our current portfolio, we have $32 billion of loans outstanding, and we still have the ability to issue up to $40 billion of additional capacity. And I'll come to that. Now, okay, so this is the way we think about our work and our mission. You see on the far right, this is kind of our technology arc that we work with at the Department of Energy. You look at the far right, conventional fossil fuels, oil, gas, coal, and utility scale wind. Those are well known, well understood, and from our perspective, completely well banked. Banks are very familiar with them. You can go to any banks if you have a project up and down and they'll finance it, or not, but it's fully understood, and there are many banks out there that are in that business. The far left are those technologies which are purely at the R&D stage. There's no chance of bringing them to full-scale commercialization. Fusion, certain aspects of grid storage. These are just kind of representative technologies. There are a number of things there, but that's just to give the sense. And then there's this area in the middle, which is industry areas where new technology is evolving, and new technology could be very good. Good meaning can reduce costs, can be highly efficient, can be a much better process than what exists, and can reduce greenhouse gas emissions. All these are good in developing technologies, but because they are new, they haven't been tested at commercial scale. And even though there may be equity investors who are willing to put in money, and even though you have permitting, and even though you may have offtake agreements, we found time after time, and if there are developers in the audience, you've found this too, you will hear time and time again from a senior lender, it looks like a great technology, but we're not going to take the risk on financing the first one. So our program is really how do we de-risk a project by financing the first, second, or third project at utility scale, demonstrating the technology for other lenders, the community at large, and then hopefully we can stop lending after the second or third or fourth project and the commercial sector takes in. So, a lot of people have said a lot of things about our program over the years, but the goal is not to crowd out any private investment. It is really to work in tandem with private partners. We will not do any project unless it's truly a public-private partnership. There has to be a developer. That developer has to bring at least 30 to 40% of the project cost in equity to the table, and then we'll finance the balance as senior debt. Okay? So our mission is really taking things in the middle category, the LPO financing, where we are now pretty much the only senior debt provider, and we want to transition it through demonstrating that the technologies work and the processes work. We want to push these over to the right, to the private financing area where the market takes over. Now, a little snapshot on what we've done. Our existing portfolio was $32 billion, and we run 3 different programs. 2 are the energy programs, 1703 and 1705, and 1 is an auto program for advanced vehicle technology manufacturing. That is a totally separate program than energy, and that has to do with making America's fuel fleet more efficient and improving mileage. So there we have financed, on the second bullet point, we've retooled 3 all-electric vehicle manufacturing facilities in the country. Tesla, we provided the loan to Tesla. You may have read Tesla paid it back, so we are out of there. So as like you, we read about these fires, but not our worry anymore. And then we have Nissan. No, that's a joke. It's a great company, Tesla, and it really is. It's a phenomenal company. And Nissan and Ford, we have a $6 billion loan to Ford, and that allowed them to retool 12 of their different factories, and that's where they're building the C-Mac and all the hybrids and fuel efficiency vehicles. And as you know, Ford is now the #1 manufacturer in terms of overall CAFE standards. So some of the projects, we finance the largest wind farm, the electric. We're building one of the first commercial scale cellulosic ethanol plants in Nebraska. That's coming online in about 3 months. Abengoa is the developer there. Largest PV photovoltaic generation facilities, and we've made some very significant loans to the concentrated solar industry. A lot of what I'm going to talk about in examples has to do with the renewable side. The 1705 program, we were set up with the Energy Policy Act in 2005, and that founded the 1703 program. The 1705 program was something that was created in the Stimulus Act. And so the Department of Energy was essentially awarded the ability to make up to $20 billion of loans in the area of renewable power. So it was for innovation in renewable, and it was also for the commercialization of renewable. So that's why most of the loans we've done so far have all been in the renewable area. That is changing when we come out with the fossil solicitation. And we're also going to talk about a nuclear deal because we're about to close on the Vogtle project, which is in Georgia, 2 new nuclear facilities, the first new nuclear facility built in the United States in 30 years. So we're doing it's going to be a multi-billion-dollar loan guarantee for that nuclear facility. These are some, this is big news in DC. I don't know how interesting it'll be for you, but it's just good to see the type of performance. Because as you know, this program got significantly attacked, a lot of bad publicity for it with Solyndra and everything during the last campaign. But here are the results, the real results of our portfolio. This is both of our energy portfolio and our auto portfolio. We have over 31 loans outstanding. The total amount of money that we've committed for those loans are $32 billion. So as you can see, these are very big loans. billion, billion-dollar average. Of that, we've dispersed $18 billion so far. You know, we gate our disbursements based upon deliverables which the borrowers have, and when those deliverables are met, we dispatch money. So all that 32 is committed. Now, losses to date, $800 million. We're not happy with it, but that's the number we have. That includes Solyndra, and that includes the 2 or 3 other small deals that we've had that have gone under. But the loss is $800 million on a $32 billion portfolio. When Congress set up this program, they do this thing where they have to appropriate the losses that the program could incur, and that's how you get through the budget process. So Congress, when they set up the program, authorized losses of up to $10 billion. So we've lost $800 million. So more than 90% of the loan loss reserve set up by Congress for this program still remains. We like to think we've been very good stewards of the taxpayer money. And it also just shows how kind of a lot of the allegations don't bear out in the financial performance. So losses as a percent of the amount dispersed is 4%, and the total loan amount is 2.5%. And, you know, for those of you who have been in the project finance world, you know, those aren't great numbers, but they're certainly not numbers to be, they're not horrible numbers, particularly when we're financing risk and innovation, which is what we're trying to do. Okay. Now, that is how we do on the economic side. I show that to show that we're prudent. We believe we're good stewards of taxpayer money, but none of us are in this business, and the government didn't set this up for us not to lose money. They really set it up for us to achieve policy objectives. And as I mentioned, most of what we've done is renewable, and this is just one example, I think, of the way we work. 2010, this is a case study of the PV market, PV solar market, photovoltaic market. And this is the world of large-scale PV markets, which now exists, you know, throughout the Southwest. In 2010, there were no projects over 20 megawatts in size of PV solar. But right at that time, the states were very interested with renewable portfolio standards. There were developers, both private developers and utilities, that wanted to get these things built, and utilities were willing to enter into offtake agreements, 20, 25, 30-year offtakes. So all the components of a good deal were put together, equity in place, permits in place, and offtakes in place. But these projects could not attract senior debt financing. And why? It was not because of the huge technology risk, it was just the risk of scaling up from a 20 megawatt facility to a 150 or 200 megawatt facility, which is a technology stretch. It's not a huge technology stretch, but even that amount of scale up risk is a risk that no senior lender would take. So LPO came in, we financed the first 3 projects by ourselves, took it directly onto the government's balance sheet. And then the next 2 projects were done in a program we call Financial Partners Program, our FIP program, where the government guarantees 80% of the debt, and we bring in a network of private lenders. So in those last 2 deals, we brought in 30 private lenders that joined with us. So the LPO financed the first 5 of these PV projects that exist in the United States. Because it was Stimulus Act financing, that stopped in September of 2011. We were not allowed to give another loan after that time, so we hard stop. Since that time, 10 new projects of 100 megawatts and above have been built or are being built or have been banked in the United States. So we think, and now this is, you know, PV solar is a fully bankable part of the energy landscape. And we think that's directly tied to being on mission and doing what we wanted to do here, prove out the technology, prove it out to banks. So that's one example. The other that we're working on now is with concentrated solar. I'll just spend a moment on this. We've also made 6 loans there, each one for $1 billion. And the first project has just come online in the last couple weeks. It's Solana Concentrated Solar Power in Arizona. This is really a transformative project because for the first time it is solar, so 250 megawatt facility, $2 billion facility, a huge project, but it has 6 hours of thermal storage. So it has a molten salt storage system. So, you know, during the day the sun is shining, it heats up as a normal solar facility, but it's also charging up a storage unit. And that storage unit can then deliver power to the grid, the full 250 megawatts for an additional 6 hours. Or they can downscale it to 100 megawatts and then produce power 24 hours a day. So it really is something that all of those of you in the renewable energy or concerned about renewable energy policy have known. The biggest problem with renewables is how do you make it more dispatchable? How can you make it available when the sun isn't shining or the wind isn't blowing? So we think this is really a transformative project demonstrating storage at scale, not in a test case, but at scale in a $2 billion project that everybody can learn from and study going forward. This is the money we have left and the money we've spent. A lot, and the columns on the bottom show the type of industries that we can work in as mandated by Congress. Everything we do is through the original, this is all the Energy Act of 2005. And Congress specified to us where we could make this lending authority available. So we have $18 billion for nuclear, of which $8 billion will be committed to the Vogtle plant. So we will have $10 billion remaining for future nuclear projects, advanced nuclear, possibly SMRs. Front-end nuclear is enrichment. Fossil is what I'm going to talk about coming up because that is what we're going ahead with now. And then we still have money going forward for renewables. The 1705 is the green bar that's the 16 that we've already done in renewables. And then the ATVM, the advanced vehicle, we still have $16 billion available there for auto manufacturers and auto suppliers. Now, this is the advanced fossil energy solicitation. This was something featured prominently in the President's Climate Action Plan. The President had to authorize us to go ahead and issue this solicitation. And what a solicitation means, just the way we work, is we have to put out an offering to the general public where we say we are now in the position to make loans of up to $8 billion. And it is really an announcement of our intention and that we're open for business, but we are not allowed to contact any individual companies or developers for projects. It's essentially a government procurement. So in that, we can't go and say we know this is a particularly interesting project and speak to the developers. We can just put the word out of our intention to finance projects and then say we're open. So it's really a big part of what we're trying to do is let everybody know this $8 billion is there because the developers or the utilities or the companies or the municipalities have to apply to us for a loan. And we can only consider those projects that apply to us. So this is the beginning of our process. We will be finalizing this and issuing the final rules and instructions really within the next few weeks. But it's $8 billion, and what you need to do to qualify is you have to be involved in the fossil fuel industry, which is really very broad: oil, gas, coal. The project must be innovative. So there must be something innovative about the project, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. It has to use a fossil fuel. It has to reduce greenhouse gas emissions over its competitive set. It has to be located in the United States, and because it's a loan, there has to be a reasonable prospect of repayment. Right? And then, as I mentioned, it's coming on the final. Now, a little bit more. Who is this qualified for? It's for coal, oil, gas, shale gas, coal-based methane, methane hydrates, anything that has any type of fossil fuel can apply. And remember, we're looking at innovation, so particularly things like coal-based methane, methane hydrates, those things that are more the cutting edge is really what the program is for. And we've really looked at trying to make it available for fossil fuel throughout the chain. So beginning from the extraction and generation side of the business. So for instance, if there is a new technology to reduce methane emissions at the wellhead, that's something we could certainly see financing. We do a life cycle greenhouse gas analysis on a project. So if there is a way to deal with water and wastewater and recycling of wastewater in the fracking process, that would lower greenhouse gas emissions for the entire project, and that's certainly something we'd like to consider. And then the whole range of CCS is certainly what we're doing, and efficiency improvements. So all the way to efficiency, so things like combined heat and power, microgrids, fuel cells, all would qualify. Importantly, this is the first solicitation we've done, the Department of Energy, where you don't just have to be a corporate borrower. So this is open for the public sector, so universities, airports, hospitals. What we're trying to deal with, too, with issues of resiliency. So how can we help microgrids and things be a part of the solution? A microgrid fueled in part by natural gas, but if universities want to put those in our network of hospitals, those are all things that could qualify. And just a little more, carbon capture is obviously a very important part of what we're trying to do in the country, in the Department of Energy. So this is really funding available for carbon capture procedures and policies, either for direct into, into the big geologic formations or really for EOR. But that's certainly something that's very interesting. Advanced resource development, as I mentioned, oil and gas extraction, but coal bed methane recovery, gasification, those type of areas. Low carbon power systems, that is very interesting to us, and we believe there are many technologies there right on the cusp that are viable but have not been proved out at commercial scale. And then the whole world of efficiency improvement. So if there's a new technology in combined heat and power or waste heat recovery, or fuel cells integrating in with microgrids, that's something that would apply. We're also very interested in the whole area of hybrid plants. So if there's a coal plant that wants to integrate biomass more into its facilities, and that's any project we would look at that would pretty much be a new facility, those are things we're interested in doing. If there's a nat gas facility that really wants to try and integrate solar into it, those are things that we can look at. So we think it's very broad, very wide, and we're really reaching out to you. If you have an interest in applying, please look at all the material we have on the website or speak to me about it. And then we really just kind of want to get the word out that the government really is open for business with this $8 billion solicitation.
Thank you for being here. Hope to see you next year.
Thank you.